From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
What's up, world? It's the one and only Pop DiBiase, the PrimeTime Capper, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. It is Monday, and it is time for the premier sports betting show, the Primetime Angles Live. And man, it was a really fun weekend. It was a weekend of a lot of upsets and everything like that, and a lot of weekend of we knew that was going to happen as well too. So, hey, that's just the worldwide sport, the world of sports, you know what I mean? So pretty much here we are, and we have ourselves a very good show going on, a very good show for you guys today. So what I got going on up here first is let's talk about this NFL playoff picture. We have a lot of moving parts going on, and a lot of things were getting settled last night. The Ravens are now the number one seed for the moment in the AFC. I don't think that's going to stand up, to be honest. But we all knew that the Titans were kind of smoke and mirrors and everything like that. You know, no Derrick Henry. That means that this team probably be a third or fourth seed, but they're still going to make the playoffs. So they're still a really good team. It's just that they're just going through the motions right now. We are at the midpoint of the season as well too. So a lot of teams that were really good in the beginning of the year are going to start feeling it a little bit now because things have changed. Teams have improved. Teams are healthier now, and that's just the game. You know what I mean? So the NFL playoff picture is looking pretty good for the Ravens right now after that win against the Browns last night. I know there was a lot of things that felt like, pretty much the Browns could win it last night, but I think that at this time they might need to have Baker Mayfield rest. And I think that the best thing for that the Browns right now, who are 6-6, is a bye. So pretty much they're getting their bye later in the season than most teams, and I think it's right on time to reinvent it, to reignite yourself, all that good stuff. So they'll be okay, but 6-6 though, they're on the outside looking in still. And then you have a Kansas City team 7-4 making good moves right now, winners of their last 5 in a row as well too. And they are sitting in the 4th seed, but they're not too far away from taking over as the 1st seed. And when you look at the AFC leaders and you really get the crunching, you say to yourself that Kansas City is still the team to beat. They're the 2-time defending AFC champions, and they put themselves back into the race, even though they were never out of the race. It's just that, as I said to you guys just a moment ago, they went through their losing portion of the season earlier than expected. You know what I mean? And at points in the season, you're not going to look good. You're going to lose 3 out of 4. You're going to lose 2 out of 3. But you make good ground for yourself when you are like, say, how the Titans are right now. The Titans are not looking good in their last few, but it doesn't really matter because they already set a good pace for themselves. So they put themselves in a good position. They're 2 games ahead in their division as well too. Now Cincinnati is very battle tested. They find themselves 7-4, and they're a game away from being the 1st seed because once Baltimore loses, they would go to 1st place in the division. Now, that is huge for a team that was really, really going through it at this point of the year. Last year, getting to know themselves a little bit better. Now, Joe Burrow is here, 2nd year, had a devastating injury, but that doesn't really matter at this point in time. He's came back with the force, and he's doing his thing in his home state. So 7-4 looking pretty good, and the way they beat on Pittsburgh yesterday, that should go ahead and tell us exactly what it's going to be moving forward for a team like Pittsburgh if they can't get it together, you know, for the rest of the year. Because right now Pittsburgh's 5-5-1. They find themselves in seventh when it comes to the race. So they are well back. They're behind the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Colts. And literally they were just pretty much tied with the Browns, who were 6-6. So both those teams well on the outside looking in, but they're not that far away either. And the Chargers 6-5, that was a devastating loss yesterday, but they keep their spot because they beat the Raiders already this year, so they own the tiebreaker in that situation. So, this group of 5 that are out, this is tiebreakers right here. And the 3 that are in the wild card, it's the same thing. It's all about tiebreakers. And it's crazy when you have 2 teams that could be the 4th seed right now in the wild card spot. Now, Buffalo, I would say this is probably second to Kansas City when you say this is the team with the chance to get to the Super Bowl and win it, because I know they got blew away by the Colts at home, but once again, they just were going through the motions that day, and the Colts are a hot team. As I've told you guys on several occasions, I was very gung-ho with them as well, too, when it came down to the game yesterday. They did lose by 7, but the Colts led most of the game yesterday. So, this team is playing really good against the bad teams and the Midland teams, but, they play good against really great teams and they come up short. And sometimes that's the story of your season, right? So I'm thinking to myself right now, the way that things are working out for the Colts, they should be very confident right now, especially with the way that they see the Titans playing. But the only thing is, though, the Titans are 8-4. They're 6-6. Guess where those 2 extra wins come from? Those 2 extra wins come from the Titans sweeping the Colts. So pretty much that's already out. So, them taking over the lead, they would have to have the Titans actually have a very catastrophic fall. So, they can ease themselves in and sneak into that 7 hole right now, because the Chargers are a team that looks really great one week, and then the next week, you don't know who they are. So I say that they're a team that trades off a lot of wins and losses, and what they did themselves a favor this year. They started the season off 4-1. Another team that did themselves some favors this year too, that have themselves, and this is 2 teams to be exact, that have themselves in a good spot right now, are the Raiders and the Broncos, because both those teams started off the season 3-0. So pretty much they put themselves in, even though they've caught up, 6-5. Both those teams are 6-5, but at the end of the day, though, they're in the race because where they started at. So this is a good race, and the AFC is really unpredictable, and it does feel like it could be a year where it is like the 7th seed going to the Super Bowl, because it's that wide open. But I think when we really say who the clear-cut favorite is and still is the Kansas City Chiefs, because they're getting better at the right time. They've won 5 in a row at this point, and they got a bye this week, so they got some rest as well too, and they got rest right on time as they're ascending. So you like that. And then you got a team like the Cardinals, who are the number 1 seed in the NFC. They have the best record in all of football. They're 9-2, but they've lost their last 2 out of 3 as well too. So this team was in need of a bye, and it seemed like they kept winning games pretty big without Kyler Murray, who was out the last 3 games. They were actually went 2-1 in that in that situation. So they're doing pretty well for themselves, and I think once again, this is a team that may regress a bit after, the having a bye and everything like that. So we all know Green Bay does own the tiebreaker. So the moment that they have the same amount of losses on the season, Green Bay goes back to being the 1 seed. Now Tampa Bay, a lot of people are very confident in Tampa Bay, but I think when you have a little bit of friction between the head coach and your veteran quarterback, that's going to linger in bigger situations, and it's going to keep getting brought up. So, I think that they're doing pretty well right now, but I think that, at the end of the day, they're going to still need Antonio Brown to make him, over the top. Because I think that with him being out, they just haven't really been the same team. Yeah, they're 8-3, but a lot of their losses have came in the last few weeks as well too. So, they're playing good football and everything, but you just want to see them be challenged as well too. I think that they really do have a really easy schedule this season, and all the teams that they play, minus Washington, were very good teams that can absolutely crush them in the playoffs, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Especially when you look at what the Rams did to them. So they're great. They're the champions, but I wouldn't get ahead of myself with the Bucks. I wouldn't be overconfident in that they're going back to the Super Bowl this year. Okay, I don't even think they make it past their first playoff game, to be honest with you, because they haven't been challenged enough this season. And when they have been challenged, it's a no go. San Francisco, as I always say, not. I'm not a big believer in what San Francisco is doing. I'm just a realist. San Francisco has top 5 rosters in the NFL. And when they're healthy, they can compete with anybody, and they can be the best team in the NFC. And they have played absolutely lights out the last 6 weeks of the season. They are 4-2 in that process with 3 wins in a row. And this is coming off of a stretch where they had lost 5 out of 6 games after starting the season 2-0. Okay, so San Francisco is game tested. They put themselves in a good position now. They walk into a very nice schedule for themselves, in my opinion. Yes, the Cincinnati game is going to be tough, but I would favor San Francisco going into that game because they have put their running game back together. And the Browns showed you a few weeks ago, if you have a great running game against Cincinnati, you can absolutely devastate them. So that's a game where you can favor them. And then, they're going to Seattle, and Seattle isn't bulletproof in Seattle anymore. So you have that situation working for you as well, too. I think Seattle is almost on better luck next year. We'll see, because I think that they have to do some cleaning up right now. And then they have Atlanta, and then Tennessee, still no Derrick Henry, which is another road game. And then they host their season finale at home against Houston, and then they have an end of the year game with the Rams. You know what I mean? So I could see them going ahead with these last 6 games, possibly winning the last 4 out of 6 of these games, if not going 5 out of 6, because they're going to lose one of them. But San Francisco's in pole position right now to absolutely not just get a playoff spot, they could possibly steal the NFC West at this point right now, because they're ascending as you see the Rams trending downward. So it's a crazy situation. As I keep telling you guys, the Niners do have the Rams number, but I don't think that this is going to have anything to do with either one of these teams making the playoffs. I think both of them are still good to go, because when you look at this, you have 6 teams with winning records in the NFC. The rest of the gang is all below 500, okay, including Minnesota, who holds the final wild card spot. And I'm thinking to myself that final wild card spot is very open. But this team playing tonight, the Washington football team, should honestly be a very, very, very scary play for a lot of people to if you really love the Seahawks tonight, because their quarterback is playing very good, underrated football right now. A lot of people aren't talking how good he is playing, and they just lost Chase Young, but they're still playing really good football. They played even better football last week. They stepped it up big time last week without Chase Young. So, you're not worried about this team. They're coached very well. So that's why you say to yourself, this team possibly has the opportunity to be that team, even though they're sitting in the 8 hole in the division and they're 4-6. I say to myself, if they can win this game tonight, they can push themselves right up they can push themselves right up into the group with where Atlanta and New Orleans is at. And it's crazy because we all know that New Orleans has lost their last 3 in a row. They're probably out of the playoffs. We can probably count them out. But Carolina, I would say they're still somewhat in the race. Philadelphia is a real wild card. The New York Giants, we already know that they can try as hard as they want to, but I think that they're playing for next season. The Chicago Bears are playing for next season as well too right now. Seattle, though, the way that they are built, they can try to win out because people still kind of believe in what they're doing. But when they're not covering or they're not scoring points like they used to, that they've went under in 90% of their games this year. And that's really unlike the Seahawks, especially in Seattle. So it's a new day with them in Seattle. So all in all, we got a wide open playoff race. It's absolutely amazing. The AFC will not be figured out until the final week. And at the end of the day, the NFC, it's all about who's going to get that last seed. I would say this: the Rams, Cardinals, and 49ers are all jousting for who's going to be the division winner and who's going to be in those two spots, those top two wild card spots. So we'll see how it goes. They're putting 3 teams into the playoffs this year out the NFC West. Believe that. All right, so we move on. Let's go ahead and talk about the Monday Night Football game. And tonight's Monday Night Football game, I got some notes here for you guys. It's going to be a good one tonight. It's going to be between Russell Wilson, the man himself, the Mr. Incredible. He is a guy who is very, seen on the scene and everything like that. Good to have him back. But the Seahawks are 0-2 since he's returned, and that's unfamiliar because you thought when Russ came back, everything would just start get back to normal, right? It doesn't work like that in the NFL. So, they're one, and the funny part about this is the Seahawks have not had a season like this in like 20 some odd years. This is how consistent they've been. They might not have went to the playoffs every season, but they've consistently won maybe say 6-7 games or better each year for a very long time. And right now they've dropped their last 5 out of 6 after a 2-2 start to the season. They're 2-3 straight up on the road, and against the spread on the road, they're 3-2. And then on the road, they've went under in all 4 out of the 5 games with 1 push. So you have that, and then also they're 0-2 on national TV this year. A team that's always really good on national television, but not this season. And then you have the Washington football team, who have won 2 games in a row after 2-6 since their bye week, and they started off the season 2-6. Now at home, they're 2-3 straight up. Against the spread, they're 1-4. And when it comes to the over and under, they went under in 3 out of their 5 games. But one thing that works out for Washington tonight is that they're 1-0 on national television, which was a 1-point victory over the Giants early in the season on Thursday Night Football. So we do have ourselves a pretty good game. As I said on the show Thursday, the NFL Bet Exchange, that I do favor Washington in this spot. But it's hard because I'm kind of flip-flopping a little bit because I think Seattle comes out on the winning end here. But I think, though, it's going to be just a really good game. And I do what I always do. You stick with who you picked first. And I like Washington. I like the Washington football team to get a big win tonight. I just talked about them real big about if they can win tonight, I think they can push themselves into the 7th seed. I think that you can believe in Washington a little bit more than you can the Eagles at this point. And the reason why it's not because the talent, because Hurts is a much better quarterback than Heineke. The thing is, it's the coaching. Okay, the coach for the Eagles is not good, and Washington's coach was a guy that went to the Super Bowl, Ron Rivera. So if I had to really choose who's going to be the better team at the end of the season, I will choose out with the guy that went to the Super Bowl instead of the guy who was a coordinator, who was a first-year coach trying to figure it out. So there it is with that Monday Night Football preview. And as I said before with the Seahawks, they got to pick it up, and they got to pick it up fast because their division is well ahead of them at this point in time, and they might just have to be the basement dweller this year. And I know that's something that they haven't been in a very long time, but you know what? That's when you know the writing's on the wall to make some necessary changes, and it is what it is. All right, so we move on, and let's go ahead and jump into uh, some pretty good fights over the weekend. And I'm not going to be too long here because I did go a little bit longer than I wanted to. So this weekend we saw Teofimo Lopez suffer his first loss and lose all those belts at the 135 division. He was the champion. He literally had every single belt, major belt that you had: the IBF, the WBA, the WBC franchise, the WBO, the IBO, the Ring Magazine, all the belts but the WBC belt, which is held by Devin Haney, who's fighting on Saturday against Jojo Diaz. So, you know, there was a lot that Teofimo picked George Kambosas. A lot of people were very frustrated about that because, you know, there's a lot of other there's this thing about the Fab Four Kings, whatever they want to call it. But, you know, there was those four names. Tank, T.O., Ryan, and Devin, right? And now T.O. is lost. And T.O. became the big man on the block because he was able to beat Lomachenko. But now when you think about it, they could have maybe they should have never gave him that fight, winning that fight. You know, maybe it should have been a draw. You can go back and learn some things because he did what every young champion who's very overconfident does. You go ahead and you celebrate your victory every single day of the week instead of just going back into the gym and remembering what it took to get those belts. And I think that the celebrity took over, and the love fest that everybody had for him over a year ago when he was beating Lomachenko and everything has dissipated after he said he felt he wanted to fight. You know, anytime a guy knocks a guy down and both you guys are bloodied at the end of the night and you're the champion and you're in your hometown, and even if you have a long night, tough night, you expect to get the hometown decision. That wasn't the case. It was a split decision, and a lot of people who watched the fight, I wasn't able to watch the fight. I'm gonna watch it at some point this week, but I was able to watch highlights of the fight, and I would say this. I would say, you know, sometimes you just don't get your way. And I think that sometimes they just got to teach you a lesson. And a lot of things worked out in Devin Haney and Eddie Hearn's favor. George Kambosas is a free agent. He can fight wherever he wants to fight at. And this fight was taken to his purse bid. And pretty much Triller picked it up first. And then Triller had two different dates in two different locations. And what happened was Triller pulled out because they just got tired of the nonsense. Because at first it was a COVID situation, and then it was another, like my leg situation, something about some type of injury situation, some type of hand, I don't know. But Triller pulled out, and then the zone jumped in. And I say this because now what the zone can do is Eddie Hearn and crew, they can go ahead and offer Kambosas King's ransom to fight Devin Haney if everything goes well on Saturday against Jojo Diaz, because he is the WBC champion. Now Kambosas is the unified title holder. So the only belt he doesn't have in his notch is the actual WBC. The WBC franchise is a pageantry belt. So what happens here is now they can have Devin Haney be put into a mega fight that he's been seething for and has earned because he's a champion. So if everything works out the way that I kind of see this crystal ball, I can see Devin Haney easily handling Jojo Diaz on Saturday, even though we got to fight the fight first. And then I could see him beating Kambosas as well, too. And then guess what? Devin gets the last laugh, and he has he can brag and say that he held all the belts. And now then everybody will want to come to Devin and have the big fight. And I think this is exactly what is going down at this point. You know what I mean? I'm not and you know me, I'm fair. I don't favor any of these guys because they're all human, okay? And everybody has their strengths, everybody has their weaknesses in the boxing game. But I just think the way that it's setting up, the way his business works, Devin Haney's probably the most organized of them all out of these young boys that are boxing. And he actually is his own promoter that's working with a co-promoter with Eddie Hearn. That means he's learning the game under Eddie Hearn. So pretty much I think what happens here is that he gets his Sugar Ray Floyd Mayweather moment and gets his big stance, and he can finally say that, he's the man. And I think that he'll be able to work it out a bit better than T.O. did. I think that it was just too much too fast for such an uber talented Teofimo Lopez, and I know he'll be back. He'll be moving up as well, too. I don't think he's too worried about anything at 135. And I think that him and Devin Haney eventually meet at welterweight. It's just that simple. And everybody's like, do we got to wait till 2025? Nah, you just got to wait another 18 months. That's it, and that's all. So with that, you feel bad that T.O. lost, but much props to the champ. Kambosas came out there, did what he had to do. He went against all odds, and he beat the champ in his house, and it's just that simple. So, and once again, congratulations, George Kambosas, on being the undefeated lightweight champion of the world. All right, so our next fight was the fight of the night, in my opinion. This fight could have been a draw, but wound up being. But I think the controversial decision ruined it, because you had one guy who was really, really mad about the outcome of the fight, felt like he won the fight, and then you had another guy who just felt like that the fight was close and it could have went either way. But it was a lot of emotions coming out after it. But I felt that Brandon Figueroa won this fight. Stephen Coolboy Fulton did a great job countering and throwing very, very convincing shots, and they landed pretty much the same amount of punches. But when it came to the power shots, the power punches, and just punching in general, Brandon Figueroa was doing that all night long. And he had a lot of different combinations and a lot of different moments in the fight where nothing was coming back. He was landing all the shots, and Fulton's just sitting there taking it. And there were a few times where Fulton did look hurt in the fight as well, too. But Brandon Figueroa didn't give us the idea that he was hurt, but we knew that he caught a few of them pretty good, but he kept coming forward. He kept going at it. And I think with him coming forward and him coming at it and him pretty much eating everything Fulton was throwing at him, and Fulton respecting, the flush punches from Figueroa, then I thought Brandon Figueroa won the fight. And I felt that he was the guy with the multiple titles. He's the unified champion. You had to convincingly beat him, or you had to make the fight a draw. But it didn't work out like that, because Fulton was actually the A side in this fight. So the fight went to Fulton. And you know what? I'm not mad at Fulton winning the fight at all, because he fought excellent. He fought very well. But I thought this was Brandon Figueroa's best performance in the ring ever. And they took it away from him with a controversial decision. But the problem with the decision is that both judges were 116, 112 in a majority decision, with one judge being 114, 114. I don't get the 116, 112. That's my thing. You know what I mean? Because that means that you gave him 8 rounds to 4, and I'm just like, I don't think that happened. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, it has to be closer than that. To be dead honest with you, I'm sorry, it just has to be closer than that if you're gonna pick a winner. But I would say this: it was too hard to pick a winner, because both of them deserved to win the fight. But that's why we have rematches, and I think that this fight deserves a rematch. I think the public deserves to watch this fight again. And I think that we're going to get that opportunity to watch this fight again as well, too. But if I'm Steven Espinosa, this is how you set this fight up. You don't set the fight up as a main event, because it was a smaller card for Showtime. It was just a Saturday night card. This fight deserves to be a part of a big pay-per-view, not as the main event, but as the co-main event. So that means that butts are in the seats and that you can have a good-looking crowd as you go into that main event. That's really how you set up these main events that sell high pay-per-views, because it's not just about the main event. If you can supply a co-main event that could be a main event, then a lot of people get excited about that, and they go and they move forward with buying these pay-per-views. So it's a little bit of old school stuff, because UFC wasn't the first one putting the big fights all together on one card. Boxing was doing that 50, 60 years ago. But, as more money comes into the game and more shysters come into the game, things get a little different. You know what I mean? So pretty much with that, that's going to be a wrap on my on boxing. I haven't been talking too much boxing lately, but those were some great fights, and I want to go ahead and get into it. And I'll try to make sure that we do bring it up on a weekly basis. But all in all, you guys stay tuned, because when I get back, I'm going to be talking Lakers, and then I'm going to be talking the NBA tonight, and then we're going to be talking some tickets. All right, so you guys stay tuned. This is the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles Live, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners, and I'll Have Another, and Nyquist. Also trained 2-time Breeders' Cup champ Golden Sense, who are just a part of a long list of thoroughbred champions trained by Doug O'Neill. The Good News Only Racing Club has a young core of horses to look out for in Dennis's Celery, Irish Heatwave, and Notre Dame, just to name a few. Win the day every day with the Good News Only Racing Club, a proud sponsor of the NFL Bet Exchange.
From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
Tune into Big Wave Boxing every week with a brand new guest, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper, getting the best boxing stories, best boxing angles, and the truth when it all comes down to the sweet science. Tune in to Big Wave Boxing on the Prime Wave Media channel on YouTube.
All right, we are back with the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles Live, and we have ourselves a pretty good scenario going on here in Los Angeles right now for everybody who's kind of mad about what Westbrook. There is talks right now with the situation brewing in New York right now, to where we've had pretty much the same type of fallout situation in New York. Well, Westbrook hasn't fell out yet with the Lakers, but right now, this morning, Coach Tibbs did announce that Kemba Walker would no longer be in the rotation, meaning that he's not going to be a starter anymore. So pretty much, I think they were trying to work out a trade for him. And in pretty much the curse of great New York point guards that go back home and play for the Knicks, he winds up on the bench, and hopefully they don't Marbury him at all. And from what I'm hearing right now is that there could be a possible trade brewing in place where would send Westbrook to the Knicks for Kemba Walker, and also send DeAndre Jordan in the trade as well too. And I would think that the Knicks would throw in somebody else for the Lakers as well, so they can make a straight up nice little swap and everything like that. And let me tell you why this trade would be a really good trade. If you brought in somebody like Kemba Walker right now that just got dissed by his head coach, not doing too well in his hometown, had the Lakers in mind to play for the Lakers as well too over the summer, I would say that we would probably get the best Kemba Walker we possibly could get, because Kemba Walker was a Laker fan growing up as a kid as well too. And I think that playing with LeBron would put him in a different category at this point in his career. You know what I mean? And I think that since he's very unselfish and he's a leader, a real leader, a vocal leader that actually tries to uplift his teammates, get his teammates involved, and has shown that he can be a clutch shooter as well too. I think that this trade makes total sense, that you move Westbrook to the Knicks, a place that he was already kind of fond of and kind of had a lot of interest in. And then you got a guy like Kemba who had a lot of interest in being in Los Angeles. So I think the deal makes a whole lot of sense. You're not getting much out of DeAndre Jordan. You're getting a little bit out of DeAndre Jordan. You're probably getting maybe 1 to 2 good games a week for him whenever he's playing out there, and he's only giving you 10 to 15 minutes a game. You need a big man or a person who's your last line of defense to play more than 10 to 15 minutes, in my opinion. They need somebody like Trez again. You know what I mean? They need somebody who's who's right there in the middle, but they're a big scraper. They rebound, always in the block, and always trying to make sure that they take high percentage shots as well too. And that's exactly what the Lakers do need to get this bad boy going, in my opinion. So I truly do think that this would be a great trade, but it's just rumors. It's just talk. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. But all in all, the Lakers did get themselves a good win yesterday. They won yesterday 110 to 106, sweeping the season series against the Pistons. And I think that everybody has to kind of calm down a little bit. They saying the Lakers aren't winning. The Lakers aren't losing that many games either. The thing is with the Lakers, they're not the Warriors right now. You wanted the Warriors record right now. You want to be like the Warriors right now. And best behold, here goes something for all the naysayers. After the Lakers lost 3 games in a row, they've won their last 3 out of 5, including their last 2 out of 3. And honestly, they could have won their last 4 out of. They could have won 5 games in a row. There are 2 games that they lost when they lost by less than 6 points. All right. So all this talk about the Lakers just losing and not being good and blah, 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 blah. That's a lot of just you and your feelings because you wanted them to be different this year. They're 11-11 at this point in the first 6 weeks of the season. So what's the big deal? What's the big problem? Now we got December. All these months are going to be different. The Lakers can make December their most dominant month, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that once we roll around to January, February, March, when things matter, that's when you're going to see the real Lakers come out. And I think that they're holding down the fort right now. No, it's not that I think they are holding down the fort right now. 11-11 is not bad. I look at the standings every day in the NBA, and there's about 20 teams that would trade places with the Lakers right now. I promise you. Most of the league is 11-11, okay? To be honest with you, all right? The Eastern Conference is a more dominant conference this year, to be honest. And yeah, it doesn't look good because you have an 18-3 Golden State team, 18-2 Golden State team, and a 17-3 Phoenix team. Okay, and then the Clippers are 11-9. Lakers on the season 11-11. That did you just hear? The Lakers have played the most games in this group. You know what I mean? So it is what it is at the end of the day. And then when you look at this, the Lakers could be leading the Southwest. The Lakers would be second in the Northwest. So don't give me this crap about they losing and, this is going to be a bad season. The Lakers, if the playoffs were to start today, the Lakers find themselves in the playoffs. Yeah, they're the 8th seed, but I don't see them sitting there too much longer because they're 11-11. Minnesota's 10-10. Portland's 10-10. Memphis is 10-10. And the Lakers will shake loose from this very soon. And Dallas has been not playing great basketball. They've shown that their whole team resides on Luka. And I think Luka is going to have more injuries as the season prolongs because he had a real serious injury, and that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So for all you doubters and all you people that are overthinking this thing, the Lakers are okay. They're still in the playoffs, 11-11. I'm telling you now, there's 7 other teams that would trade the Lakers for their record right now, okay? As I said before, about 20 teams in the NBA would trade for the Lakers record. So with all this talk about they're losing too much, you just sound stupid. They're not losing. They're winning, then they're losing. Then they'll lose 2 in a row, then they'll win 2 in a row. Then they'll win 2 out of 3, then lose 3 out of 4. The Lakers are keeping themselves even. It's been an even year for them all year long. It's just not been dominant the way that you want it to be. You know what I mean? You're getting jealous because you see the Suns getting ahead of you, the Warriors getting ahead. But that's because those teams have the chemistry. They know each other, and they have the great balance of young and old. Okay. There is no just dominant old guys on the team with a few young guys. A lot of young guys with a couple old guys. No, they have the best of both worlds. And that's why they're dominant right now, because they've planned ahead, unlike the Lakers. So it is what it is at the end of the day. You have to accept what you have to accept this. This is what happens when you get rid of 3 straight second picks in the draft and a guy that was the 7th pick in the draft. This is what happens. This is it. This is what happens. And then when you give away other first round picks as well too. And all these guys are blossoming other places, and they were coming together in Los Angeles with a coach that just got fired the other day, Luke Walton. So everybody's life pretty much got ruined by you guys know who it is, but it is what it is at the end of the day. He's on our team. We're gonna support him. And we just gonna go from there. That's it. And that's all. I feel the Lakers are still in this bad boy. I just know that all they need is that Christmas game, and we'll be good, because that's when we'll know that the season has started and it's time to roll. But being 11-11 right now with a group of guys that didn't know each other, we only have so many people back. I think probably we have 4 people back from that championship team. All in all, THT wasn't a part. THT was handing out waters. He wasn't a part of that. So he was just around it. But and 2 of those guys weren't with the team last year. So really, we only still got 2 guys left from that group, and that's AD and Bron. And that's not good at the end of the day, in my opinion. So, we're going to try to work this thing out. But I think that trade that has been mentioned is going to work, because you got to have positive people in that locker room. You can't have volatile you can't have combustible people. And I just think that Westbrook's mentality is just does not fit the Laker mentality at all. Yes, he plays hard. Yes, he plays well. Yes, he plays with a chip on his shoulder, but the Lakers don't have time for all that. We already had a guy who played with a chip on his shoulder his whole career. That time of the Lakers is over and done with. Now it's time for the Lakers to move forward and be a dominant force with the assets and the players that they do have. So they got tonight off. They'll be back tomorrow against the Kings in Sacramento. Hopefully they can go ahead and right that wrong from Friday and get themselves 2 wins in a row, which is much needed at this point, and a great way to end the month as well too. So there it is. That's the state of the Lakers for today. And I move forward to the NBA. And we do have ourselves some pretty good games tonight. And up first, we have the brothers ball going at it tonight. And that's going to be Alonzo and LaMelo. And, LaMelo, the star of the Hornets, and Lonzo, one of the stars of the Bulls. And LeVar is over there just feeling pretty good about himself right now. So when I look at the Hornets and the Bulls, they're pretty much they pretty much have had the same month. You have a Hornets team that's 13-9. Bulls are 13-8 on the year. And you have a Hornets team that right now 8-7 straight up in the month of November. And against the spread, they're 7-7 with the push. So they've been even when it comes to the spread, and they've been back and forth when it comes to the how they played this month. But people have to understand is they started off the month losers of 5 straight. And so their record actually is 8-2 after that 5-game losing streak. So they're in pretty good shape right now, to be honest with you. So the Hornets coming in here, I think, are the hotter team because they've won their last 8 out of 10. Then you got the Bulls who are coming in here. They've been back and forth all month. They had a nice little West Coast road trip. Same thing with the Hornets and both, and it kind of affected both, but the Bulls did a bit better. The Hornets didn't win 1 game on that trip. So, well, actually, yeah, they beat Memphis. So, yeah, they got to win against Memphis, but that's about it. but on the Cali trip, on the left coast trip, so they didn't do well. So you look at this, you got the Bulls 8-7 against the spread straight up in November. They went under an 8 out of their 15 games this month as well, too. So this is a real even game. So that's why I think that they're a little bit too cute on the Bulls tonight. It's a Monday night, it's moody, and you got the brothers ball going at it. You know it's going to be very competitive. They're going to be checking each other as well, too, in this game. You know they are. So I do like the Hornets on the cover. They're a plus 5.5 tonight. I think that's a good number for this team tonight as well, too. And I would see that number drop as well, too, once people start looking at the recent numbers. Okay. Now let's go ahead, move forward to our next game, which is going to be a good one. This is going to be between the Timberwolves and the Pacers. And both these teams I would honestly say they were much improved in the month of November than they were in the first few weeks of October for the start of the season. Now, you did have a Pacers team that started the season 1-6. Right now, they've went 8-7 in the month of November. And also against the spread, they're 9-6, and they've went under in 9 out of the 15 games they played this month in November. So they're looking pretty good, because I say this because they're 9-13 now. So going from 1-6 to 9-13, that's a good improvement from where you started at. And the Pacers did have some expectations this year as well, too. Now the Wolves, just like the Hornets, they started off the month losing their first 5 games of the month. Now they're 7-8 straight up on the month. They've won their last 6 out of 7 as well, too. So you can see that they didn't start well at all. They were 1-6 on the month starting off. So now they were 1-7 actually. I'm sorry, and now they've went ahead and caught up and find themselves in a good spot. Now they're 10-10 on the season, and they're looking pretty good. Now they're in the playoff race as well too, and a lot of us might say that they might be here a little bit earlier than we expected, but hey, it is what it is. They're trying to keep guys around here with Edwards, because Edwards is going to be their star of the future. Also, the Wolves are 8-7 against the spread this month, and they have went over in 8 of their 15 games this month as well too. So pretty much there is this is a game that I really tend to favor the Wolves in a bit more, because I think that the Wolves are going to make this game very, very tough on the Pacers tonight. And also, I just wanted to make sure I had everything right here. But the Wolves are the home team tonight, and they've been so good at home as well, too. They've been really good at home this month as well. So that's what I'm banking on. So let's see how it goes. Let's see how it shakes out. And we go from there. We move on to our next game, which is going to be the Cavs and the Mavs. And you guys already know how I feel about the Evan Mobley, and Evan Mobley is back. And as soon as Evan Mobley was back, the Cavs went right back into being one of the best defensive teams in the league. They only gave up 92 points to the Hawks after giving up over 105 points in each of their games without Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley actually came back a little bit ahead of schedule, so he was right on time for a 13-point victory on Saturday night. Now he comes back around, and I think that they're overvaluing the Mavericks here, because the Mavericks have dropped their last 4 or 5 games. Yes, I know that they played back-to-backs against the Clippers and the Suns, but they only got one win out of that deal, and then came back around and lost by 6. So I see this Cavs team who had to go through probably their toughest stretch without their best player. Now, they lost to Brooklyn in this exchange. They lost to Golden State. They lost to Brooklyn again, and then they lost to Phoenix. And then they beat Orlando. 4 out of 5 of those games were in Cleveland. And so pretty much now they're back on the road. They've been playing really well on the road this year. And when I look at my notes for this month, you do have a Cavs team that's 7-6 straight up. They started off the month 4-0. So this team was really good. They dropped the last 5 out of 6. So this team started really, really well, man. That's all I can say. And when you start off the month 6-1, and then you drop 5 out of your next 6 because you know your best players out, then what can you do? But what makes you feel good about the Cavs is that the Cavs covered in their last 2 games before Evan Mobley came back. So once he came back, he just added back into the mix, and they're 9-4 against the spread this month. So you can trust them against the spread as well too. And then they've went under in 7 out of their 13 games. Now the Mavs, on the other hand, they've dropped their last 4 out of 5. Like I said, they're 6-6 straight up this month as well. And then they're 6-6 against the spread as well too. Now, when it comes to over-unders, they went over 7 out of their 12 games. 7 out of their 12 games this month. So pretty much the reason why I feel like this one right here might be an overplay if you loving the Mavs, and an over bet, because the Cavaliers have their best player back, and Luka is still getting back into the groove, and he's still dealing with a pretty bad injury. So I'm favoring the Cavs in this tonight, and I do not care. I'm taking the Cavs as my dog of the day with the plus 220. I think they get a huge win tonight in the Big D. And there it is. Cavs at the Mavs, and the Mavs will be the favorite tonight, 6.5 points, and they are minus 275 favorite as well too. Over under at 210.5, and let's see how it shakes out. All right, so we move on, and we have ourselves our next game up. This is going to be the Spurs and the Wizards. The Spurs and the Wizards coming to this one, both going in different directions this year. You have a Wizards team that's actually one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference at this point. They have wound up winning 13 out of their first 20 games this year. It's pretty good for a team that hasn't seen anything like that in a very long time. And then you have the Spurs, who are 5-13. This is kind of like a new level low for me when watching the Spurs being 5-13 to start a season off. But I know that sometimes Pop can start slow and then finish very, very fast. So you have the Wizards 8-6 straight up in the month of November. Against the spread, they are 6-8 this month, and they've went under in 10 out of the 14 games they played this month. And then the Spurs, on the other hand, are 3-9 straight up, and they've dropped their last 6 out of 7 games as well too. And this is in the month of November. Now they're 5-7 against the spread, so they're making you some money in that regard. And then they've went over in 6 out of their 12 games this month. So when you look at this, you say to yourself that this game will possibly go under, because that's what the Wizards are doing. They keep trending towards the under, and the Wizards are playing much better defense than they have in the last few years. And that's pretty good, because when they had John Wall and Bradley Beal there, it was always about outscoring teams. Now, when you have the presence of former world champions and guys like KCP and Kyle Kuzma, and then you have Spencer Dinwiddie, then the defensive principles are different with the team now. And these guys are dedicated to playing good defense. And now this team isn't giving up 120 and 130 points a night, that you'll be lucky to get 100 on them on some nights. So that's a good thing moving forward for the Wizards. And you know what? The Wizards have put themselves in a position nobody saw coming. So this one right here, I would say the under is possibly the best bet here. And I think it really truly is the best bet here. So we'll move on, and let's go ahead and get into our next game, and that's going to be the Blazers at the Jazz. This is a Northwest matchup as well too. You have a Jazz team that started the season off very well, but now they're kind of middling. They're 13-7 on the year, but they started off the season very, very well. Then you have the Blazers, who have been back and forth all year. They're 10-10, but they're not a great road team. But hey, tonight is they're going against a team they're very familiar with, and we'll see how this one goes. The Blazers are 7-7 straight up in the month of November. They're 6-8 against the spread, and then they're even when it comes to the over and under. Now the Jazz, on the other hand, they've had we'll win 2 in a row, then we'll have 2 bad losses in a row. They've lost to three teams with some of the worst records in the NBA this month. So the Jazz might not be a team that you can trust in games against teams that are lowly, but they could be a team that you possibly trust in games like this. Now they are 8-6 straight up in November, but they're 6-8 against the spread, just like the Blazers, and they've went over in 8 of their 14 games. So tonight, I feel like this game is going to produce a lot of scoring. You see the 220.5 number, and that's the right number in my opinion. So I think that's exactly what will go down tonight, is getting the over 220.5 tonight. So we'll see how it goes, see how it shakes out, and we will go ahead and talk those tickets from here. And right now we're talking tickets. Let's go ahead and jump into our first ticket. And I know I didn't get into this portion, but, college basketball, as I said before, we'll start previewing those things when we get down to, more immediate, more into the season. Once we get over at least 10 games or so, okay? But all in all, though, on the primetime pick 6, we got a 48-1 ticket tonight. I like CMU tonight with the plus 30.5 against Kentucky. I got Iowa tonight with the plus 125. They're in a fun little game tonight, in my opinion. Pretty much kicking off the Big Ten ACC matchups this week with their game here against Virginia. Then you got Boston College tonight. I like Boston College in the spot. They're not playing any Big Ten team, but I think Boston College has the home court advantage. I think that they'll take advantage of that and they'll get themselves a nice win. I got Notre Dame tonight in the battle with Illinois. You know that they're old rivals in the hoop game, and I think that Notre Dame covers this game tonight. And then St. Mary's has themselves what I feel is a very good spot against UCR tonight, playing against Riverside, and I think they can win that game by 10 or better. And then we end the ticket with a team that I'm always very familiar with, and they've been good to me over the years as well too. Loyola Marymount, right outside of Marina Del Rey, minus 165, and that's a 48-1 ticket tonight with the college basketball games. All right, so we move on, and we got the NBA Super High Five, and we got the Super High Five at 34-1. We got the Hornets tonight plus 5.5. As I said before, Wolves money line minus 145. Cavs been bet down to plus 200. That's where we're at with them tonight. We got the Cavs here as our dog of the day. Then I'm going under 215 with the Wizards and the Spurs. And then I end off with the over 222.5 with the Blazers and the Jazz. So you see that the over went up. Usually that's not – sometimes to me that's not a good sign. But I think in this game tonight, the way that this game paces out, this does pace out to 225 or better total, in my opinion. And then, as I always say, single what you like throughout this group, because there will be winners. And then we end off with our Monday Night Football bets. I got a bet for each quarter for you. In the first quarter, we're going to play the Washington football team just to be in the game. So if they're tied, we can cash a ticket, or ahead, we can cash a ticket. And then they have to be ahead in the first half with the money line at minus 105, which is their money line for the total game as well too. And then we end off with the over 46.5. I expect some scoring tonight I expect some scoring tonight. I know Seattle's not scoring as much as they're used to, and they're probably the team that's went under the most. But all in all, though, I think tonight Russ breaks out and has himself a pretty good game against the still shaky defense of Washington. So there it is. I want to thank you guys very much for tuning in. You guys are the absolute best. And with that, I bid adieu. And this is the Premier Sports Betting Show, the Primetime Angles Live, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper. If you got a hunch, bet a bunch. Always bet with your head, not with your heart. And the movement is moving, and I am gone.
From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.